take my time. It's a brand new day. Gotta take it on my way. Gotta take it on my way. It's a brand new day. Gotta take it on my way.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Gotta take it on my way. Gotta take it on my way.
Judith, how's your week been?
It's been good, Nicola. And you, I hope.
Oh, I've been absolutely swamped with client inquiries and referrals.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, I know. I seem to have, well, this the clicks and leads thing seems to have made it easy for people to buy. You know, how we're always talking about that. And
Yes.
my diary is chocker. I've had some absolutely stonking inquiries, not least from a gentleman who has built a 90-foot luxury yacht and then sailed it around the world as the skipper for a international motor racing superstar.
Ooh.
And he's blogged all the way. And it's funny, actually, because I was the second sailor I've talked to this year. And he's just lives the most amazing lifestyle. He's off to St Kitts to drive the boat a bit.
And what does he want from you, given that he's already living a luxurious lifestyle?
He's developed a super skipper software which helps him run the boat, because running a boat is a bit like running a bit of an ecosystem, I think, and it's a bit like running a business. You know, it has to buy supplies and fuel, it has staff, and the skipper is the boss of the whole thing. So he's developed this software that he's now going to be selling to other skippers, and he'll be creating a community of super yacht skippers. How cool is that?
That's very cool, isn't it?
Yes, and it was really interesting, and you know, I've just had so many really interesting inquiries this week, and talk about a bit more in the what's impressed section. So I don't want to go too much into that.
No,
The thing is, I'm having to swap from my rather rudimentary but extremely efficient spreadsheet accounting system and go VAT registered, which now means I've got to look at using Xero, which is an online cloud-based accounting software, which I hope my accountant can cope with. He's pretty good.
One of my clients switched to Xero relatively recently. She's not particularly techie or accountanty, and she said it was easy.
Yeah, good. The reason I'm going to that rather than Sage is because I don't want to be machine-based. So Sage is something you have to download to your computer.
Yes, and also it's better driven by an accountant.
Oh, okay, yes. Well, I'm pretty sure that my sister's boyfriend, stroke, live-in partner, is able to take what I'll produce from Xero and do something.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm daunted by the idea of going VAT registered, but A, the threshold has been reached, and B, my mentor says that it makes people take you more seriously because they think, it gives them an idea about your turnover and stuff, and you're more likely to attract more business-like clients if you are VAT.
I think that's a load of nonsense. However, what I do think is important is that if you want to stay out of VAT, you can, and if you bite the bullet and go in, then the sky's the limit.
Yeah, well, that's I just by the way this business is growing. I mean, you think I launched it in 7 days over Christmas, and it's going absolutely bonkers. And it's only halfway through March. I've really got to step up and become a proper business now, which means
Yes.
I'm also thinking about getting an assistant to help me with the Facebook ads. I'm going to have to train them myself. I don't want to just hire someone who says they can do Facebook ads. It's because I've got a very particular system which works, and I'm going to train someone. Unfortunately, none of the teens is even remotely interested in learning how to do Facebook ads.
I think that's a good idea. I think it should be an arm's length thing where you can have a proper commercial relationship with the person.
Yeah, it's so the interesting question is, again, how big can you build a business with an entirely virtual team? Because I don't want to go down the office route, having an office and all that responsibility and overhead. So I'm just going to grow it as big as WP Curve is up to 50 grand a month and it's an entirely virtual team. James Crampco makes millions a year with an entirely virtual team. So I'm just going to try and go for it.
Well, and it can be done in chunks as well. We just take it up to a level and get comfortable and get it all working there, and then you take it up again, like stairs.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting for our listeners to follow my journey, won't it?
Very interesting.
What about your week? What have you been up to?
Well, I found my blogging mojo again. You've probably noticed I've been in your inbox rather a lot. I'm really excited about that because, last year, although it was at times a struggle, I was really proud that I'd blogged for 365 days of the year. And then what with the norovirus and the court case and all sorts of things in January and February, I stripped my diary back to just the client work that I had to do. And the mojo to blog again found me, which was good. And I love this idea that, one can publish oneself and become a writer in that way. And I've written 2 newsletters in the last week I'm really proud of as well, which have had lovely feedback from the readers. And that's just, I know that's another direction my life is going in the last quarter. And I'm certainly not ready to go there yet, the last quarter of my life. But I'm loving writing again. And the other thing is I'm still obsessed with the abalone fishermen, so I'm trying to strip everything back so I can proudly say, eventually, that I only work 100 days a year. Now, at the moment, I'm cheating slightly and calling only the hours I spend with my clients work. And this week, that's 13 and a half, which is less than 2 days, which would bring me in under the 100 days a year threshold that I'm aiming at. So I'm quite pleased with that. And in celebration of that, I'm having the day off. After we've done this, I'm having the day off, and that's the end of it. I'm not even going to look at my gadgets or look at my emails or worry about my clients. I'm just going to be a free woman.
And what are you going to do? Do you want to share?
Oh, I've got various sort of what Sue Ellen from Dallas would call errands. I've got to go to the post office. I've got to do some shopping. I might nip to the cinema. Just personal. I might watch a bit of telly. I might go back to bed this afternoon with a book. I don't know. The sky's not. What's the world? But the world's my kipper, Nicola.
The world's your kipper, and Sue Ellen. Where did she come from?
Sue Ellen. Do you remember Dallas in the 70s? Who shot JR? Sue Ellen, when she was going out, would say she was going to run. She was going to do some errands. It's not an expression we ever use, is it?
Well, they used to in the old days, but I don't know if I've ever heard Americans using it. That's quite an interesting one.
Oh, well, there you go. It always stuck in my memory, where are you going, Sue Ellen? I'm going to run some errands. And I think actually it was a sort of euphemism quite often for, an afternoon in a hotel with somebody I shouldn't be with, that kind of thing. But errands, I think it's an all-purpose, mind your own business response, really, isn't it?
And it's a lovely thing to do some lots of little easily achieved things that you can then have a lovely sense of an achievement at the end of it. I opened all my pots the other day and sorted all my filing and did all that.
Yeah, and do you know what? It's a form of self-love. You feel great at the end of it, not because you've done all of these things, but because you've looked after yourself. Sometimes I notice myself, working vaguely with the washing machine on, which is making my clothes clean, and stirring something I'm making in the kitchen. And I'm never so happier as when I'm sort of wambling around doing things that make me feel better about me.
Wambling. That's another wonderful word. Yes, I was very proud of myself that I actually managed to exchange 2 light bulbs that were the wrong size the other day. Normally they would sat around annoying me for months, but
it's your B&Q thing, isn't it? Where all the men are handsome, you can't help stop yourself going there, isn't it? That?
Yeah, but I was.
Any excuse.
Yeah, exactly. What's fueled your fire then, Judith?
It's a blog post that I'm going to recommend that everybody has a read of. Fortunately, it's been nicely, efficiently named by, Leo Barborta of Zen Habits.
Oh, yes.
Zenhabits.net/care. It's an article that he wrote, published yesterday, called The Case for Caring About Your Work. And I'm going to read you just a snatch of it, if I may.
Uh-huh.
He talks at the beginning about, less than a decade ago, it seemed to become a trend to create passive income and outsource everything and go and live on the beach while the money piles up in your bank account. The idea seemed to be that doing less work is good and automation is the way to go. I too became lured by that dream for a little while, so I don't judge anyone who goes down that path, but I'm here to say that there's another way, doing things yourself and really caring about the work you do. This is the way of the old craftsman who spends days, even weeks, working on a single piece because he wants to create something useful, beautiful and meaningful. Not mass-produced, not factory-made, not mindlessly manufactured and consumed, something to enrich your life. This is the way of the writer who pours her soul into a novel, not to crank out a bestseller every year, but to change the way someone else sees the world. This is the way of anyone who works at a company not just to clock in and get a paycheck, but to make a contribution, to do work he's proud of, to create something powerful in the world. This is the work of any artist or creator, any entrepreneur, any coach or athlete, any parent or auto mechanic who puts more effort in than is required for the work, because from that effort is created meaning. Why waste your time creating something you don't care about and aren't invested in? Life is too short. Perhaps it would be better to spend the little life you have on something that matters to you, that will matter to those you are creating for. And I really like that because it's the way I've run my coaching business over the last 12 years, throughout which period of time I've always felt really badly that I've never created a book or a digital product or, embraced Infusionsoft or anything like that. He's basically endorsing the way that my natural inclination was to go with my work, which is to be very caring about it and have a lot of me in it.
Well, also, the thing that most internet entrepreneurs, and I know a lot of them, obviously you go on the cruise with, people who are financially free and could stop working tomorrow. But, there was Jenny Hott was a particular example who I interviewed, who's been, she's $1 million a year blogger. And she spent 3 or 4 years just, trotting around the world, having a lovely time, visiting friends and things. And actually, she's got to the point now where she's come back to work because she's looking for meaning in her life. So what you're saying.
That's quite a nice idea that work can be meaningful. I think we all got to a place where we fell out of love with work and we thought it was connotated with what we hated about a day job, perhaps, and that we were looking for the holy grail of passive income, which is still, of course, very nice and very appealing and not to be poo-pooed. But I do think what you've taught me over the duration of these podcasts, and we're on, I think, number 18 today, is that even your very high achieving online entrepreneurs are coming, you and Minesh and various other people that you've talked about are coming towards this human approach, this personal approach, coming away from the impersonal, I've been processed by the shopping cart feeling that the uber passive stuff makes us all feel. There's a bit of a backlash, isn't there, Nicola? We're coming back towards the personal service and care and attention. And you with talking about going out and meeting people and having one-to-one days, that's part of that, I think.
Yes, I've just been. This will make you shock you. I'm not only having a VIP one-to-one day soon. I'm going to Oxford to do it because it's halfway. And
lovely.
And our diaries just couldn't work with this client coming to Shoreham. So I thought, well, I'm halfway out anyway because I'm going to holiday in Gatwick. I may as well go on for holiday in Oxford afterwards.
Yes, indeed. And actually round the M25 and up the M40. Now, listen, so let me just give you the URL of that again so listeners can look it up. Zenhabits.net, which I think is quite important. I'm such a .com snob. He's not even a .com with his massive following. Zenhabits.net/care. The case for caring about your work. I think it's lovely.
And I also love the way when you're talking about your 100 days a year, you don't count blogging and writing as work. It's the only thing that qualifies as work and work you love is stuff that has to be in the diary at an appointment at a particular time.
Yes.
So that's interesting, isn't it?
Yes, and I do that thing in my diary that you were talking about last week where I put lots of reminders in. And what I do now as each day goes by is I strip all the reminders out so that all that's left is the actual work that I've done with clients. So I can see what we used to call chargeable hours in the old days in accountancy. I can see what's actually worked. So things like, check this and do that and file this and, take all of those out because they're just sort of admin tasks, really. They feel like work. That's what contributes to the feeling of, oh God, I'm working 50 hours a week, but actually I'm not.
Yes, very true. Yes, that's great.
Tell me what's fueled your fire this week.
Well, listening to all of this stuff as we are, just thinking about life, and I've been having a conversation with a very close friend of mine about what planning a life after kids, after striving, after the rest of my life, really. And it's come out of the meditating with Paul McKenna because
lovely.
In fact, I made myself cry when I was telling my friend this, and it was my vision for Paul gets you to envisage yourself at the end of your life, and you've got to picture yourself sitting somewhere. And I can picture myself so clearly at 80 or 90 or whatever. It's not. I think I'm not 80 in my thing, and I'm sitting there and I'm on a very modern house and I'm on the balcony of it, but I've got a lovely fluffy rug over my legs and I'm. Steve's cooking roast dinner in the background because, the kids are coming with their kids. and their partners and lots of other people. Now, it's actually just such a strong vision. And the other thing is, what do I want to do before then? So I'm actually doing a lot of travel this year. I went on the cruise. I'm going to Malta for a wedding. I'm going to Vegas for a mastermind. Then I'm going to Stupa with Phoebe, and I might go to Stupa with someone else. And so traveling, purposeful travel is the thought of that and planning that, and that's fueling my fire. Is the thought that I can arrange things so that I can go traveling more.
And let me tell you what's so brilliant about that, because I know that's been a goal of yours for as long as I've known you, and I've known you since 2002, so that's 13 years, is that actually you're living your dream. In 2015, you're living your dream, Nicola.
Yes. It's all come about quite suddenly, hasn't it?
How brilliant. How brilliant. How brilliant. Well, you see, there you go. Actually, it feels sudden. It's not sudden at all, is it? It's 13 years of hard work.
It's another overnight success.
Yes.
The other thing is that's fueled my fire is our super fans. Let's talk a bit about those, because we had a lovely conversation about them just before we came on air, didn't we?
Oh yes, that was fun, wasn't it? We were a little bit delayed in issuing the podcast, not last Friday, but I think the Friday before, and I got a couple of requests on Facebook. Where's the podcast? Where's the podcast? It's lovely to have the idea that people are, ravening and waiting for the podcast to come out. And in my little group where I send them the recording every week of the call, whenever it happens, somebody was saying, she'd got a backlog of those to listen to. And I said, oh, God, you're very diligent if you're listening to all of those. And she says, oh, it feels like the compendium edition of EastEnders. I save them up. And somebody else came in and said, yes, I've got our calls here, Own It the podcast, and the Archers omnibus. So people are ranking our podcast up against EastEnders and the Archers, which I think is fabulous, don't you?
Oh, I think that's astonishing. And as we're sitting here, I'm just looking at the lists of. I invested another $5 a month to get better statistics for the podcast, and I'm looking at the list of the countries in which we're being downloaded, and that you can recognise a lot of them, can't you? We've got the United Kingdom, obviously, and the United States are the biggest, but then we've got Austria. So who's that?
Yeah, so that's superfan shout out, isn't it? And I know who it is. It's Liz Truckle, who runs a B&B called Landhouse Lily, and she will be listening to us whilst cooking the supper in the B&B. That she saves up our recordings and listens while she's one of those people who can't sit still. She's always doing a busy job. Yeah. So she saves up our audio as a sort of treat to listen to while she's cooking supper, which I think is really nice. Hello, Liz.
Then there's Jersey.
Yes, I think that's probably Georgina. Okay. Oman, I think, is Karen. These are. I love. Well, we're back to the point that we've been saying for ages, which is, isn't it wonderful to have these arms all around the world of people we love and people who love us?
Yeah, absolutely. Jamaica, Japan, Puerto Rico. No idea who those are.
No, I don't know who those are either. No, I don't know who they are. But isn't that nice? Yeah.
And even Denmark. I've got no. It's just brilliant. Spain, obviously, all the obvious countries, but it's the ones that you don't really know so well. I mean, we've got 4 downloads in China, Serbia, Cameroon, Philippines. These are the least. Nepal, India, Chile.
It's beginning to sound like the Eurovision Song Contest.
It is, yeah. Guatemala, how these people, they must be finding us because we're still in the top 20 of new and noteworthy. And if you go into management and marketing, I think we're in the top 10. But
I think we should say, whoever you are, listener in Guatemala, hello and welcome.
Hello and welcome, indeed.
So, Nicola, I think you've brought Client Challenge of the Week with you today, haven't you?
I have, and it's funny. It's funny because it's something I also suffer from. So when I'm talking about this, please don't feel I'm addressing you, particularly anyone who's listening, because even the Queen has her petty meannesses. Apparently, she turns lights off, and it's all about the reluctance to invest in the right tools, particularly things like getting a logo done. Even a Facebook budget, so someone came to me and they said, I've got X amount for the year on the Facebook budget. And I said, well, is that for clicks and management? Yes, clicks and management. So that cut it in half straight away. And then I said, okay, so wouldn't it be better to throw the budget at it in the first 3 months? Because it's not a very big budget. And if I try and eke it out over the year, it's going to take you forever to get the data. Whereas if we threw the whole budget at the first 3 months, we'd be able to get some meaningful data because, you'll probably understand this, Judith, about statistics. If you've got 2 landing pages, you need 100 conversions on each landing page before it becomes statistically significant. So throwing little bits of money at something over a longer period of time is not as good in if it's quite a decent sized budget, which this is. It's better to do it all at the first 3 months. And the other point of that is that if you do it in the first 3 months, you can get to the point where it pays for itself, where you're making sales that then pay for your advertising ongoing. So I had to do quite a detailed analysis of that to explain it. But then this week also, I've had a client who has been reluctant to pay £250 for a logo, and they've put one together themselves, which is fair enough, and it looks perfectly fine. But I was just intrigued by the fact that they've paid a large sum of money to work with me. They're investing in a very nice new website, but when it came to the logo, they were cutting corners. And it's just all about, I think, having the right tools for the job makes life so much easier. But
yes,
it's hard to invest in those tools sometimes, isn't it?
It's very strange what we will and won't spend money on. I've spent years, as you know, 20 of them as an accountant, and really all my work has been in the context of money. And this works the other way around too. I had a call with a client last night where I dissuaded him from spending 3 different sorts of money because it was too soon. He hadn't proved the business model yet. But I think I will go to my grave never understanding how and why people make purchasing decisions or don't. My best friend, who you know, won't pay postage and packing. And will often say to me, do you mind running me up to Marks and Spencer's in Oxford Street? Well, no, let's just pay the £5 to get it delivered. It's just, it beggars belief. People don't understand, I don't think, the direct correlation between time and money. Your time costs money, even if it looks free to you. And I think, I'm the same. I look at some things and I think, oh, that's cheap. And other things I think, oh, that's expensive. And actually, it's completely subjective, that.
And a really good example of this, and again, I'm not directing this at anyone, so please don't take offence if you're listening, is the client who will go with the MailChimp free email hosting service and then doesn't want to upgrade so that they can get an autoresponder system, and then and who doesn't want to spend $19 a month on Aweber, which is a much better system, really. So it's tiny little things like that astonish me all the time.
I tell you what is interesting. Do you remember in the Money Gym book, there's a chapter quite early on about plugging the holes in your bathtub?
Oh, yes.
Which is all about the amount of standing orders that go out. And I think why people do get a bit scared of $19 is that at the beginning, when we were keen on this, we signed up for everything. And if you added up all of those things, they add up to quite a lot of money. And because people weren't getting a return on them, because we weren't very sophisticated at it and we didn't know what we were doing, we just felt like all of these standing orders were going out and we weren't. So I think the thing is to choose very carefully what you want to sign up for that you are actually going to use now, because of course it's always available. You can sign up for it later.
Yeah, it's because some things feel like an overhead and they don't feel like an investment, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yeah, it is, yes. And we've taught them that to a certain extent as well, Nicola, what's an overhead. I think that's a very good question. Is this an overhead or an investment? And if it's an investment, how long am I prepared to put into it? And what am I going to do to make sure I get my return on my investment? Because just signing up for Aweber doesn't mean anything at all, does it?
No, you have to put the time in to actually write the emails that will go into your responders.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, so and I regularly I put all my, if you are worried about this, here's a tip. I've got a pay-as-you-go credit card that I put all my online expenses on, and then I pay an amount from my bank account to the credit card every week to cover everything. And regularly, I just phone up the credit card company and say, I've lost my card. Can you send me a new one? And they send me a new one. And then as the reminders come in to update my credit card, because they're trying to take payment, and then they're telling you that the card's expired. You can then
you're obliged to review it, aren't you? Yes, you're obliged to review it. Yes, what a good idea. Yeah.
And that works rather well. You can just go in and cancel all your direct debits and standing orders in your bank account, and then
Yeah.
view them as they come along. But
Yeah.
but it's this tiny expenditures versus the big expenditures. And I'm very happy to buy a piece of software or a tool for my business, but I'm very reluctant to buy a new kettle, even though this kettle is embarrassing now.
Yes, no, you've told us about the kettle before. Keep quiet about the kettle, because frankly, people will be sending them to you soon if you're not careful.
Well, I mean, really, someone came around yesterday, and I thought and you flick the switch on the kettle, it's still blooming working, but it looks so embarrassing.
I tell you what I think is quite a good thing. When one's new, so let's go to MailChimp as a good example. If you start on the free level and you get into the habit of sending out regular newsletters, and you can see that's working for your business, then actually to upgrade to the paid level so you can send autoresponders is a no-brainer.
Yes, but how much are we talking here? How much is it a month for the next
I have
level?
no idea.
You're
no idea.
Still, aren't you?
I am. Yeah, because as I said to you yesterday or the day before, I've never sent an autoresponder in my life. But we're about to change that, you and I. But interestingly, I think it's the same. I think it's about $19. It's not very much money, but I do have some sympathy with the people, because we all did it, where you sign up for everything thinking you're going to use it imminently, and you don't. And sometimes when you've been toiling on for a long time, it's a nice relief not to have those constant outgoings. It's a bit like when you come to the end of a car loan and you save £189 a month. It's an absolute joy. However, it's like taking your corset off. Not that I know what that feels like.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. But I take your point, which is what's an investment? I tell you, sometimes people go to Fiverr and you can get great results from Fiverr, can't you? But equally, you can spend a lot of time fanning around, not getting what you want and being dissatisfied with it. And there's the time is money thing. You might just as well have paid somebody who charges a little bit more, who you know as a trusted regular supplier. I mean, I know somebody who'll do a book cover for 35 quid. Why would I go to Fiverr for it, to a stranger that I don't know? I'll just pay 35 quid, have it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on a really important topic there, which is the opportunity cost. Because if you're spending, hours and hours and hours trying to get something cheap, what could you have been doing in that time to make money, to make more money, much more money than what you're trying to save? That's try and think about that. It's the opportunity cost that is very, 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 very expensive.
Yes, there was a chap I was talking to last night. I don't know that he listens to the podcast. He's a very nice man. And actually, I'm going to come back to him later in the day. But he has a day job, which means he comes home at night to, set up his business on the side, like so many. And he said, what do you think? He said, I read that you recommend not making your own website, but I could make my own website. And he wants an e-commerce site.
Ooh.
He is very techie.
Oh, okay.
He's techie. It's what he does for a living. And I said, well, how long would it take you to do that? And he said, I said, if money were no object and you didn't have to go to work, how long would it take you to do that? He said, about a week. So I said, if you're going to come home from work and do that in your leisure time, that's, 25 to 50 hours. No, first of all, we haven't even proved the business model. Don't waste all the leisure time you've got in the next 3 months making a website before we even know that your thing's going to sell. He's selling things on eBay, which of course is a perfectly satisfactory website to start off until you've proved the model. In fact, better than your own, because there's a ready-made audience for you there.
Making decisions, this is so interesting, because making decisions like that is also a way of prevaricating.
Oh, I know.
Your business.
I know. I could see that, because he's techie, he would love to make a website.
Yeah.
And actually, having to prove the model is a little bit stickier. So there was an opportunity there for him to hide in the taking 3 months to make a website for a business we don't even know is going to work yet.
Yeah, it's well, we mustn't forget that people are also looking for entertainment. One of the things is they're looking to be educated. They're also looking to be entertained, and that is something to do in his spare time. That is a hobby, isn't it? In a way.
Well, he hasn't got any spare time. I'm going to come back to him later in the day, because actually people like him come into my Who or What's Impressed section.
Oh, okay.
So let's just carry on with where we are now. So how would you guide a client who was prevaricating over spending money on certain things? And what you said was interesting, and I'm the same. We both have this same issue for ourselves. Some things we're a bit we can invest in quickly and easily, and other things we go ooh and hover a bit.
Yeah, well, I hovered a bit before paying 100. This is another example of it, right? I know that I've got to have a proper membership area. I know that it'll be a better client experience. It'll be a better experience for me putting new stuff in there. So I bit the bullet recently, and it was, oh, Mr. Posty has thrusting what feels like a large package through the door.
He makes a regular celebrity appearance on this show, actually, your postman.
He hasn't knocked today, thank God.
Before Christmas, so did mine, if you remember.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still in my night dress and dressing gown, unfortunately, so I hope he doesn't knock. But so I bit the bullet and paid what felt like the monstrous sum of $148 for a year's license. And that was the other thing, that I was much more reluctant to spend something on a year's license because I know the $148 is going to come out of my bank account next year. But actually, it's only going to take 2 clients in a year to pay for that. No, hang on. It's $79 a month I charge for my membership area. So I can't even do the maths on that. It's ridiculously large return on investment. But somehow I was holding back from doing it. And it's just ridiculous.
Yes, and I did the same thing with my WebEx, which I use for the calls on my little group. I had to go up from £36 a month to £49 a month when I went above 25 clients. But of course, the first client above the 25 would pay for the whole thing. So, it's madness. But it's good that we're aware and we're actually making those decisions with some kind of instinct, I think. I just think it's worth considering before you spend money. Is this an investment? Am I going to use it? I suppose is the criteria, isn't it?
Yeah, and is it going to make you more money, or is it going to save you time that will enable you to make more money? Again, it's about thinking about investment rather than overhead, isn't it? Is this an investment, or is it just a shiny object?
Well, in accounting terms, these things are fixed costs, you see, so that's quite tricky. But I think we've proved today that we're all a bit weird when it comes to spending money. And so given that we know that, then we could have a think about it. We can park that prejudice and evaluate the expenditure, I think.
Yeah. And I'm going to, my new accounting system, it will obviously break things down a bit more. I'm a bit dreading the extra work because at the moment I just lump it all in under online expenses, but of course some of them will be VAT.
So I think it will. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it, Nicola, because I think it'll give you more power and more control and more understanding of what is an investment. Actually, that's another thing we should follow. As you get into zero and VAT registration, it'll what is an investment and what not in your business, and what will you be inclined to strip out when you see it going out month after month.
Yeah, but I'm quite happy to get on a plane and go to Vegas, and that's not going to be an inconsequential expense, even though all of the entertainment is paid for.
Yes.
I've still got to get there and put a hotel room over my head, and yes. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever.
Well, no, I understand that. Yeah, I mean, because the things that we want are not expensive.
Yes, and also I know that I'm going to pick up at least one client that's going to pay for it many, many times over while I'm over there.
No VAT on travel, darling. No VAT on train fares or airfares. So that, if you can remember that, that'll save you some time when you're doing your accounting.
Good. So I'm hoping Zero's going to tell me what's VATable and what isn't. Probably won't.
Oh, I don't think it will. It might, I suppose. Well, the receipt. You need a receipt for everything now.
Oh, well,
and a VAT number on it.
And
a VAT invoice if it's VATable. Oh, well, we'll talk about this. Let's talk about it on the show. I'll give you some tips.
I need a VA. This week's episode was sponsored by Audio Jungle. To get some immediate atmosphere for your website or your recordings, go to ownitthepodcast.com/Audio Jungle. What's your word of the week this week then?
Well, it's simple. Simple, simplify, simplification. You used a word last week which was elegant, which is the same thing to me. I try to do this for myself, and I try to teach my clients, don't overcomplicate things. Don't try to, offer too much. Don't have too many, pages on your nav bar. Don't offer your clients too much. Get them in on the first level and then take it from there. Keep it simple. Simplicity has been my goal for quite a long time. And you see these days increasingly on the web, people who've perfected this, where they offer something that's so simple and so attractive, and it makes you go, oh, I want that. And yesterday I was talking to a client and she showed me an example of that. And it was just so gorgeous. And after the call, I saw another example of it and I sent it to her and she went, yeah, swoon. Just something that is very, very desirable, very, very affordable, and looks like the only thing that somebody offers, and you get in and you love it, and then you're in their reservoir, and then you enjoy that experience and more likely to lead on to something else later. So don't throw everything you've got at visitors to your website immediately. Seduce them in with something simple. I think we all want simplicity in our lives.
It's true, and I can think of so many examples of this. And only yesterday a client showed me a website they liked, and I said, well, it's all very well, but my eyes don't know where to go. I just do not know where to look first. And so that website was failing miserably in its purpose, which was to get me to do one thing, get me to look at one thing, get me to read one thing. But it takes a lot of bravery, doesn't it? Because, if you're just starting out in business and you want to have a range of things to offer people in the hope that they'll choose one. But actually, so many psychological experiments have said that, once we get past 6 or 7 things, we become incapable of choice.
Well, in the money gym, you used to say 3.
Yeah.
I teach all my clients now. 3's lovely. Yes. But I think 1's even lovelier, to be honest with you now.
Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, somebody recommended someone's membership area to me, and I've been in it for 3 or 4 months now, and it's a part of my life, and I wouldn't stop. So, but I'm already thinking of upgrading and going to his live event next year because I enjoy his environment so much. But the only thing you will ever find on his website is the one thing. So it really works. And if you can one product is, when I changed from the beginner's masterclass to the fast start masterclass, because somebody pointed out to me nobody wanted to think of themselves as a beginner, and it's so much easier to buy a product and then have a membership offer on the back end, which they can then get used to using and enjoy, and then choose whether to stay on or not. That just works so well, but it takes such bravery to just sell one product on your website.
I also think that choice is completely overwhelming. When you go to a restaurant and you meet your friends there and you're so excited to talk to them, and somebody hands you a menu that's the size of the Magna Carta, and it's actually much better to have a small A5 thing with just 3 or 4 choices of each course, because actually otherwise there's so much paperwork, you can't order, you're completely overwhelmed, and you can't talk to your mates. So choice is just exhausting.
It is, yes. That's one of the reasons I wear black all the time with a hint of pink.
Well, me too. And I think actually the postman must think I've only got one set of clothes because I'm wearing the same thing every day. But I've read that. Steve Jobs used to do that. Lots of people do that. They just have a sort of uniform so they don't have to think about it. I even read some internet supremo last week saying he eats the same things every week because then he doesn't have to think about that either.
Yes, that's right. Some of these paleo people, they'd cook 6 chicken breasts on a Sunday night and then just eat them during the week, one a day.
Well, there's simplicity and then there's dull, Nicola.
Okay,
so what is your word of the week?
Well, interestingly enough, it's impatient, Judith, and I was just demonstrating it by leaping ahead, wasn't I? I think it's quite important as an entrepreneur to be impatient. A lot of clients I speak to are waiting for other people to do things for them in their business, and until I point it out, they don't realise that they're letting other people dictate the pace of their success. You've got to be impatient in order to get things done. And if someone isn't doing things to the time frame they said they were going to, one client in particular has experienced this. She's been so patient with this person, and I said, You've got to fire her. She's not delivering. Yeah. She's not delivering what she said she would. You've given her several other time frames, and she still hasn't delivered on the new time frames. She's got to go. You've got to become impatient and make things happen, because only you can do that in your business.
I think you need to be impatient with people like that and patient with yourself.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm always driving myself, harder. I'm actually practicing being patient and not thinking, does that really have to be done today? Could I schedule it Monday?
Yeah. And your overnight success story of 13 years hard work, a lot of my clients are very, very impatient for early wins and successes. Of course they are, but I try and teach them that it might not come necessarily quite as quickly as that. But I totally agree with you about suppliers. I don't necessarily think it's that people are patient. I think, well, they are obviously, but sometimes I think it's that they did a poor agreement with the supplier in the first place, where it was either open-ended or the person would do it for free or a favour, or they would do it when they could or something like that. If you pay a supplier, you must agree terms, and you must keep them to those terms.
Yeah, and the other thing that's come up this week is that I'm impatient. I've got a client who wants to. They've paused their ad campaign, which is never a good idea because Facebook do penalise you if you pause and restart. And but they paused it because they realised they had to move the website that they were sending the traffic to onto another domain name. Long story, he didn't control the first website and he wanted to control, own the race course, as James Franco would say. So we had to pause it while he got the thing, and then it was all about finding a VA to do the work because he knew he could go through the website and change it all and move it all and everything, but it would take him a long time, whereas a half competent VA would be able to just take the content from one, put it on another one. And but then it's become a challenge to find the VA who's going to be doing it. And I just got told, I was supposed to be doing this. I had scheduled time to do this ad campaign yesterday afternoon, and I went in and found that the work that I needed to have been done in order to restart the campaign hadn't been done. So I just, dashed off an email saying, look, just give me your logins and I will do it because I'm just cannot wait any longer for you to find a VA and then instruct a VA and then the VA to do the job. And, it's a nonsense. Let's get this rolling. So I'm impatient. I try and encourage my clients to become more impatient, but then, yes, you're right. We do have to be mindful that we could be driving ourselves into the grave.
Yes. So impatient with the right things and the right
Yes.
people.
Yes. Yeah. I liked your definition there. Impatient with other people and patient with ourselves. That's very nice. So who or what's impressed this week then, Judith?
Well, I've been impressed by people with day jobs who are starting something on the side.
Oh.
I'm impressed at how they have to manage their time so that when they get home from work, they have to have enough time to rest and recuperate. They might have done 40 hours for somebody else and then travel time on top of that. They need to look after themselves. They need to be with their family. That means they need to find the energy, the determination, the motivation to, go up to the spare room when the spirit's willing but the flesh is weak. Motivation sometimes is there, of course, maybe redundancy, snapping your heels, something like that. So I'm talking about full-time mums who, over the years, you and I have seen them. You see them log on to Skype at 9 o'clock at night after the horrible, horrible drama of the children come home from school, you do the school run, they do supervise the homework, you do the bathing and the supper. I don't even know what order those things go in, but I know when I've been at friends' houses when they had small children that if they invite you round after school, you so don't want to go there at that time because it leads up to that ghastly nightmare that is bath time. But then after all of that's over, so they've been a full-time mum all day and then they've done that horror hour or two, they then log onto their computer and start their part-time business. But it's not only women, it's men too. So, you go to work for somebody else, you're determined to start something on the side because you can see the writing's on the wall with your day job, and you're balancing your work, your health and family life. I mean, all of those people.
I totally agree. And actually the only way to get through those 3 hours after school is just to find ways to enjoy it and be in the moment with it. But it is utter chaos. You're right.
Yes.
I'm so
it is to a person whose whole thing is about peace and quiet. I learned quite quickly never go around to somebody else's house at that time of day. Horrible.
Oh my goodness. I've been impressed myself this week with the Holiday Inn chain because I we used to do all our money gym stuff at the Holiday Inn in Gatwick, and the lovely chap that used to look after us, he's still there. Can you believe that?
Wow.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's such a lovely man, and he was there in those. He recognised me instantly when I walked back in. It was hilarious. And so I go there quarterly now to do my mastermind. I'm going for my external mastermind, my geeky mastermind there as well. And so a natural choice, but they look after you so well. I mean, they sometimes get things wrong, and they are full of Eastern Europeans now. I mean, every bar staff, waiting staff, and the conference managers there. That's obviously because the hours are long, the work is hard, the people are grumpy because they're either coming or Gatwick, it's an airport, so they're either going somewhere or coming somewhere. But they try so hard to get it right, and they're so obliging and willing that it was a natural choice when I was going to Oxford to think Holiday in Oxford, there must be one there, because I just enjoy the service I get at the Holiday in Gatwick so much. So, who or what's impressed? Well, people who do grim jobs and do it with a smile and a willingness to work, And, simple holiday, it's not expensive, the Holiday Inn, but it's actually, they're getting it really right. The food's okay, for the money. The beds are great. The rooms are great. The conference suite is very, very good indeed. So impressed with the Holiday Inn chain.
Marvellous. You don't often hear us talking about chains of things that impress us.
No, absolutely. Well, you've got your coffee. Is it addictive Starbucks, you call it?
Well, I don't go anymore because I've got my George Clooney Nespresso machine at home, and as you know, I'm one of South London's finest baristas. We say this quite often.
Who thinks of George Clooney every time she uses the machine? So that can't be bad.
Well, I have a friend who is a big George Clooney fan, and we call it a cup of, typically coffee is called a cup of Joe, but we call it a cup of George for obvious reasons. You've got to come round for a cup of George, but of course, when George got married last year, we had to rethink that. We've reverted to a cup of Joe now.
Well, enjoy your coffee this week, Judith. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy as always.
Okay, see you soon, Nicola.
Bye.
Bye.
It's a brand new day.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.